Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Robert, you want to take the roll?
Yes. Chair Hill,
Here.
Vice Chair Spoon,
Here.
Member Sweet,
Here.
Member Brickley,
Here.
and Member Suzanne Gray.
Here.
And then Mayor Lewis
I'm here.
and Vice Mayor Owen is. That's the roll. Everyone's here. We have a quorum. Everyone, all five. It's awesome.
Okay, the first item is to approve the draft minutes. I have like two minor changes. On page 2 of this page,
Yes.
in the middle of the first paragraph, it says the net OPEB asset in.
Okay.
It should be balanced.
And asset balance, correct. Okay.
And then down in number 3, about halfway, you said the return was 2.5% higher than the discount rate. That was like a year ago. The 11 points.
Oh, it was 5, sorry.
Yeah, 5.
Almost 5.
4.8.
Yeah. I think because they changed the risk mitigation policy to 2.5. I think it was previously 2, but I would update it. Today was 4.8. Yeah, 4.8 higher than
Any other changes? Would someone make a motion to approve the minutes?
I recommend the committee approve the minutes September 9th, 2025.
All in favor? Aye.
I have to do a roll
Aye.
call.
Oh, yeah, roll call, Chair Hip,
Yes.
Vice Chair Skolnick,
Yes.
Member Sweet,
Yes.
Member Brickley,
Yes.
and Member Jane.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for that, George. Yeah, if not everybody's here in attendance, we have to do a roll call voice.
So the second item on the agenda is review of property taxes issue. Robert, you want to introduce Paul?
Yes. Definitely. Before you is our review and presentation of our applicant property taxes for fiscal year 25-26 by Paula Cohn of HDL Company. I think for the highlight of one of the main highlights of our meetings is getting her Paula here in November and explaining how we are doing property tax wise and HDL does our property tax analysis for us for last 12+ years. And Ms. Cohn is here to present the property tax review for 25-26. You have my staff report and it just lets you know that our assessed value is at 17.4 billion. Rather than keep going through it, you don't want to steal Ms. Cohn's thunder. Just wanted to turn it over to Paula Cohn, and we appreciate her coming all the way down from LA to do this presentation. And if you're done here,
I came up.
She came up. Yeah, she came up. She's here. So again, thank you, Paula, and we'll turn it over to Paula.
Thank you. And there are 2 people that I think are new to this, and because of that, I'm going to do something that I typically do every meeting, and that's to go through the timeline. I need to put this. Here we go. Because property taxes are a lagging indicator of what you're seeing out there. The 25-26 fiscal year, the year that you are now almost halfway through, was begun in January 2025. So January 1st, the assessor applies the CPI that's granted for Prop 13. That's 2% or the CPI, whichever is less. And from January through June, the roll is with the assessor's office. They make changes, they do roll corrections. They may process some late sales transactions, but process all the Prop 8 reviews. And at the end of June, that role is transferred to the auditor's office. And I say transferred because their databases are not interlinking. So what happens in the assessor's office stays in the assessor's office. They bundle that up. It used to be on a magnetic tape, and then it was on CDs, and I think now they actually have FTP. I'm not sure how it gets from one department to another, or maybe on a flash drive, but they don't tap into the assessor's database. The auditor gets their own copy. They apply any direct assessments, they apply any debt service, any bonds that cities have. They roll up the 1% factors, which typically don't change every year. And then they've got that roll from July 1st to the end of August. The end of August, the roll is then sent off to the tax collector treasurer. Their job is to print and mail the bills. That generally happens in a September, October timeframe. So now we're in a September, October 2025. Right now, you haven't got penny one yet, the property taxes, because they haven't been paid yet for 25/6. Those bills are mailed to the taxpayers. Bills are due in November 2025. They become delinquent on December 10th. And then the second payment, if you pay both of them at the same time, is due in February 2026. It becomes delinquent in April 2026. Money is paid to the tax collector. Tax collector tells the auditor, got the money, you can allocate it. So the first allocation is generally received by a city in either November or December. November, if it's a, what do you call it? It's a forward paying, not knowing exactly what's going to happen yet, so it's an advance. And then after they get the money in December, they true that up. So at the very least, by the time we get to July and August, when the last payments are made in the county of San Mateo, we are 19, 20 months down the road from the value that was used to develop the revenue you're getting. Telling you that because if things are being built, things are being sold in 2025, and they're not processed by the end of December 2025, you will not see them in 26/7. You will not see them until 27/8. So properties that are being built now may have a progress appraisal on them, but if they're not completed until sometime in 2026, you're not going to see that until 27/8. But the good thing about what I do is I know what is sold, and I know what the CPI is going to be, which helps me do the budget forecasting for you. Sales and the CPI are what I call the non-touchables of what we put in our forecast. You're more than free to do anything you want to with new construction as long as you can back it up. The next page and if you want to look on the screen, because I'm kind of showing this at this point, I've got a 30-year, 20-year comparison of the values in the town of Atherton, just to show you that while the average at the very bottom is 6.94%, this is the presentation. I'm not sure, did you get them the presentation? Yeah. So the average has been 6.94%, but I'm going to tell you, you don't budget 6.9% every year, because back in the period of time before we went into the Great Recession, you had a negative year. The following year, you grew 3.1%, and then you took off again. And we go all the way down when you were having 5, 6, 7% until the interest rate hike started. And then the last 2 years, you've been around 6.5, still lower than your average. It's possible to budget that and come out fine 20 years from now, but you're not budgeting for a 20-year budget. You're budgeting what your revenue you're going to receive on an annual basis and the expenditures that are going to hit that revenue. And if you're only going to receive 4.5 or 6%, you don't want to budget almost 7% because you're not going to see it. You'll be cutting mid-year. The next slide looks at a 5-year history of the values in the town. And I focus generally on the bottom 2 sets of bars, which looks at the gross assessed value and the net taxable value. And this is one of the reports that's in the book. The gross assessed value includes every piece of property in town, even those that are owned by the school district, that are owned by the city, that are owned by the post office, any county or state property, any churches that have exemptions, any nonprofits that have exemptions, any schools. All of those are in the top set of numbers, and you've got $17.9 billion of total value. But when the tax bills are sent, they're set on the taxable value, which is on the bottom. And it looks like there's a little more than $450 million of value that is not taxed. And those are, as I mentioned, properties that are exempt or have been granted exemptions. And because of that, the values are lower. To look at your growth in comparison to the other cities in San Mateo County, your growth at 6.4 was higher than both the average and the median, which were both 4.9. The high and the low city are highlighted in gray. Poor little Colma can't get a break, but Colma is 1/20 of your size, I think. So it doesn't take much to move them up a percentage point, but they didn't get much either. So their growth was 2%. There were a lot of 4s and 5s in this list this year. And after Millbrae, there was one other city, and then there was you, maybe 2, Brisbane. Right, Millbrae, Burlingame, Brisbane, and you were just ahead of Woodside. I want to point out, however, that your value is the 8th highest value in the county. So in that, the column that says 25, 26 net value, you had the 8th highest value in the county this year. Your dollar change, however, the change value was a 6th highest dollar change. And your percentage change on the far right was the 4th largest after those 3 cities that I mentioned, Millbrae, Burlingame, and Brisbane.
It's a lot more to move our needle.
True.
Yes.
True. And you know, every year is different. You have different properties that are selling at different price points. You've got different properties that are under development that may be completed this year, maybe they're not completed. They may have a progress appraisal at what amount, don't know, till the assessor goes out there and looks at it. So there's a lot of wiggly stuff out there that can't be precisely forecasted. But we can look at historical averages, which I do a little bit later, to show you what has happened. This report, or these 2 reports that I'm showing you now, are a comparison of the major events that caused the growth in 24-25. So those are the things that happened in calendar year 23. And in 25-26, those are the events that happened in calendar year 24. The first item are the properties growth due to the CPI granted. It was 2% in both of those years. It will be 2% next year. But you can see that based on the total value in the city, you don't have quite 2%. You get 1.85 this year and almost 1.9% of the 2% last year because of the positive and negative things that we're seeing otherwise. When we look at the properties that sold,
Question?
yes,
I just want to ask a question about us being the 8th highest value or the 4th largest, or whatever. Comparatively speaking, population-wise,
don't do that.
oh, I don't want to do that.
I can't do that.
You can't do that?
I can't do that because, you know, how many people are in a house? 4 people in your city? Less than 4 people? Right? If I look at maybe a city like Redwood City, maybe a little bit higher population. So to try to take population and measure it against a residential home, you may have new homes that are being built and only 2 people living in them. Or 1 person. Yeah. So you can take your population and divide it into the value, but you're dividing it into residential, vacant, all kinds of value.
And we don't have office. This is
You
only
don't-
residential, or is this
No,
all?
you've got
assessed?
residential, you've got vacant. Here's the thing. Last year, if you had a vacant piece of property, the county called it vacant.
Mm,
This year, if you've got a piece of property that's been demolished and is under development, it now goes from residential to vacant improved. An oxymoron if ever I heard one. Is it vacant? Is it improved? So the part I'm going to show you, get me ahead of myself.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What we're going to show you
Okay,
shows
thank
what
you for
growth
taking
you've
that.
had in the vacant uses this year. Because of all of these properties that last year were miscellaneous or residential, have now been slotted over into this vacant catch-all, waiting for development.
Right.
The properties that sold this year added 3.17% of your 6.8. And last year, there were fewer dollars added, 2.74% of your 6.5. So the growth, the reason I'm able to really compare these is that the growth was really similar, but the events that caused that growth were not identical. Looking at new construction, looking at both non-residential and residential, and non-residential for you is vacant, okay? It's not residential until it's completed now. Last year, you can see that there were fewer vacant properties that were under development. Collectively,
Is that a new
Yeah, they-
categorization?
they're retiring their legacy use codes that I've had since 1989. I don't think this is causing me a little bit of angst, because comparing data 2 years now,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's a lot worse if I've got industrial, because they moved a lot of industrial properties to commercial. If you have a biotech in San Carlos, it was industrial last year, it's commercial this year. And so they had, and your value is your value. It's where do they put it? It's being put in different pots. And I like to be able to compare things, to give you a 5-year history of stuff. I can't do that. So that just sort of throw this, I just have to footnote everything, I suppose. So your total growth last year due to new construction was 1.39% if I add these two together. This year was 1.26, so slightly less, but still the dollar change was close. Last year, it was 213 million, and this year it was 206, so really close. And that's why when I'm looking at new construction for next year, it's possible we can see this kind of growth again in 2 years. But if your building official says, I did not issue the same number of certificates of occupancy in 25 that I did in 2024, then you're not going to see that growth next year either. That's what's critical. What were the projects that were completed? I'm not talking about re-roofing and I don't know, water heater replacement. I'm talking about real buildings. How many of those were completed in calendar year 2025? And then can you compare that to 2024? And if they can do that and can come up with a higher number, then that could be great. But if it's going to be lower, there's no way you can make it bigger. Except you've got 6 weeks left. And that's really get those inspections done if they're out there. The items that produced a negative change last year were the Prop 8s, and those were properties that sold a couple of years ago when the interest rates were low and the owner could jack up the price because the deal made sense. And now that same home is not selling for as much because with the higher interest rates, they've had to reduce the home price to make the same deal. So the assessor's going back unilaterally and looking at some of those sales that was sold at the height of the market and doing some reductions on those. And the difference between the unsecured values in the past 2 years, Are
you talking about the other charges?
yeah, the other changes are things like exemptions not getting applied 1 year and getting applied the next year, or an appeal that was granted that's been restored. Those kinds of things that don't fit in the other category as well, and so we pull them separately.
It's a huge difference.
Okay, I did not want to add that, backspace. There we go.
Let me hit the slide.
Yes, thanks. The city or town of Atherton receives roughly 8.5 cent share of the tax dollar received in the largest tax rate area by value. You have other tax rate areas with both smaller and larger shares. This is what we call a representative share, sort of what you show your residents as to why they think you're getting all the money that you're not getting all the money. You're getting, a little less than 8.5 cents. When we blend every tax rate area in town, it comes to 8.33 cents. And this report shows the difference between you and everybody else. Each agency receives the 1% share that is shown here, which is based on the revenue you received in 3 years prior to the adoption of Prop 13 and a specific tax rate area. So every tax rate area was looked at differently, and then they summed those up. So initially, you got the money you got. It was probably 60% less than you were receiving when you had a mill rate. The state had a budget surplus that year. They gave you a bailout, hanging quotes here, and that went along fine. They took money from the schools and they gave it to cities, counties, and special districts until 1992 when they couldn't balance their budget and someone somewhere said, hey, that was never supposed to be permanent. We can take it back and we can take this money that's now going to cities, counties, and special districts and give it to schools. And that will help the state because they will have to pay less ADA. Well, it didn't work the first year, they had to do it a second year, and because of that, you have a shift from your revenue, and you lost about 25% of your revenue in that process. The money that is collected for the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund is to be supportive of non-basic aid schools. And due to the number of basic aid schools in the county of San Mateo, they collect too much from you and have to refund it to you as excess ERAP. The vehicle license in lieu fee that used to be motor vehicle license fees that were population-based before 2004-05 are now paid for out of the ERAF pot. And because they refund the money to you, there's not enough money left over to pay the VLF in lieu to you. And the county of San Mateo has a lawsuit right now against the state of California for that.
Paul, so this share, everyone has a different share,
Correct.
Quite a big difference.
Yes, they do. So
Is
why?
that objectively determined?
No, that is back when Prop 13 was adopted. Let's say East Palo Alto was resurfacing every street in town and they needed extra money for that. And back then you levied a mill rate. You said, this is what we need to operate in the city of East Palo Alto this year. And in order to collect that, we have to increase everybody's rate as their share.
Yeah.
And they did that. And when that started happening, people that were in homes on restricted income started losing their homes because they couldn't pay their taxes. Prop 13 comes along. And so what they did is they looked at the revenue that was generated. And if you had these big projects, let's say you were building a police facility and you had gone out and you had a lot of debt and mill rates, you had a higher mill rate, and that was memorialized by Prop 13. It rewarded the guilty and it punished the innocent. So you were probably getting about 12 cents of the tax dollar initially, and then ERAF took 4 cents away from it.
So these percentages were
They're set,
cast in
they're
stone
set,
50 years ago.
yeah, they're set, they've been set for 40 years and they're not going anywhere because in order for you to get more, somebody else has got to give up something. Schools
Yeah.
are forbidden. The county's going to tell you to pound sand. And so you're left with things like the mosquito abatement, and they're going to say, okay, we'll give you our money, but you've got to take care of the mosquitoes in your city.
Our fire district.
I've always thought that we got 9% of our.
That means that you were receiving about 9% of all the revenue
All the
collected.
revenue.
Yeah.
Collected in San Mateo
Yeah.
County.
The
And like
schools, the county.
The fire district would get about 14% and the library got about 12%. So poor little Atherton, only got 9%
Well,
and
the library gets 3.4.
3.4.
The fire district gets 13, almost 14 cents.
Okay.
School
so
districts,
I thought
both the Menlo Park Elementary, the Sequoia High, and the San Mateo Junior College get about 41%. Schools
Well, the
get
colleges.
the lion's share of the money.
And a lot of these other cities get sales tax revenue. right?
Yeah, they do.
On top of it,
Yeah,
And this is just an average of one tax rate area.
right. When I blend them all together, it actually goes down. The next reports look at your revenue, and we're estimating your general fund revenue this year to be $14,511,855. You're a teeter city, so you get 100% of the revenue. And barring any unforeseen large reductions that happen countywide, that's going to be your go-to number. I've already mentioned the issue that we have with these vacant improved uses that were formerly miscellaneous agricultural as well as residential uses. You can see down below that the vacant uses increased 148.9% year over year. And their increase was almost 32% of the change based on the use types here. So that was an incredible amount. Agricultural went down, miscellaneous went down, and residential went down. Your number would have been higher. You had 31 parcels that were in the residential use last year that were not developed fully, that are now vacant uses this year. And if you need to know what was the value of those 31 parcels, I can do that. I just did not bring that with me. And then finally, to talk about the unsecured, you don't have any businesses. I have no idea how a multi-wash system you don't have apartment buildings. That's where you'll find wash houses, right? Or washrooms. I don't know. They assigned it to you last year in error, and you got 1 year of revenue, big whoop, and this year it went away, and it was 3/4 of your entire unsecured value pool.
Say that again, washrooms?
Yeah, it was multi-family wash systems, and usually, you have a car wash?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
You have a car wash?
Are they in African?
No, it was probably something very adjacent to you that has a
Exactly.
similar addressing pattern.
Yeah.
And the county made a mistake where they put it, and you got the money, and then they figured it out.
They're taking it away.
They took it away. They don't go back and take the money away,
Oh,
but they
But
took
they
it.
just changed it.
They took
Okay. Well, that seems fair.
Interesting.
They're not
We just
perfect.
looked at your revenue. I'm gonna sort of throw one other thing out here. I'm not sure I've mentioned it in the past. You'll notice that the two graphs on the bottom, that 100% of your value is in the secured role, albeit a little bit of unsecured, but you're not gonna see it here. And in the county of San Mateo, 3.9% of their value, countywide including you, is in the unsecured, and 96.1% of the value is in the secured. So the county uses your value in your tax rate areas, all secured, to come up with your $14,511,856. So that's the money that you're entitled to. But then they allocate it to you based on the way they receive it. And so although you've got no unsecured, you're receiving some unsecured revenue because 3.9% of the revenue that the county collects is unsecured, and you get your share of that 3.9%, and the rest of the share of the secured. So you receive more secured and less unsecured for the same amount you're entitled to, because back when Prop 13 was adopted, and we weren't collecting our own money anymore, and the county was doing it for us by the state, you and everybody else said, I want my money as soon as I can get it. Well, the only way to do that is a big ratio system. We collect the money, we'll give you your share of everything we collect. And that's the AB8 system, but that's your share of all the revenue collected in the county is used to allocate to the amount that you're entitled to. You also receive a little bit of unitary revenue. You have an admin fee. You have an excess ERAF credit. That's one of the two payments. We didn't get the second payment yet. And then the VLF would be $1.8 million, but because of the excess ERAF and the ERAF shortfall, you get $1,084,241 estimated. And then finally, just to look at your growth over the past 10 years. 10 years ago, your general fund was generating $7.9 million. Today it's 14.6. So that is a $6.7 million increase. Of course, you've budgeted annually as it comes in, and you've spent it as needed and saved it as needed. I would point out the VLF, but you can see how the VLF is everywhere. You have a couple of negative years. You've got a year that there was a true up. You've got a couple of more negative years. So it's really not comparable. Okay, to get into sales transactions a little bit, a reminder, for something to be in the 25-26 roll, it happened in calendar year 24. These are the top 40 deviations. I'll cover the negative one in a minute. Looking at the ones that are highlighted, 20 of the largest 40 deviations were related to sales transactions where the sale price was $10 million or more. Those that are highlighted in green were sold for prices that were 20 million or more. Those that were highlighted in yellow were sold for prices more than 15 million. And those with the six of the five little arrows are the properties that sold for $10 million. I did some research, and those that are highlighted in purple are the properties that have had some new construction. Not sure what the status of that new construction is, but it was under review and may be completed and may have some more value to add. So this is what last year looks like. Looking at the first 7 months of this year, there has been one sale that was $14 million, and that property sold for more than it was valued for on the roll. And there have been 4 sales for more than $10 million. There have been no sales yet through August that sold for $20 million or more. And I've got a report that shows that in a minute, but I'm gonna hit a couple of other things first on this report. The largest growth parcels, the largest single family home, it's not the largest difference in the sale price of a single family home in compared to the original value was a piece of property at 30 Atherton Avenue. The property sold for 31.8 million. It was an increase of 21.8, so the property was valued at $10 million for the sale. This is one of the few that I could actually get a street view or a property view. Everything else is an aerial view. Single family home owned and at 230 Atherton was purchased for 18 million. It was an increase of 18.1. The property value before this home sale was 651,393. That's what you want, my friends. That property had been held for more than 45 years. Pure profit. And I don't think they're going to tear down an $18 million purchase unless they're going to build that $57 million house on an $18 million lot, right? There were 8 homes, by the way, we'll look at these year to date that were pre-Prop 13. So some of these are those. This property is at 229 Polinas Avenue. It was increased 15.4. It was purchased for 33.9. It's the largest values paid in the past year in 2024. But the differential between that and the value was less than the first one that I showed you, that a $21 million increase. The one below that at 63 Santiago Avenue, it was developed over the past year for an increase of 14.2 million. The property was purchased in October 2024 for 32.4, and the sales price and the new owner's name are not reflected on the roll yet. So that's one of the ones you're going to see next year. And Elizabeth is over there looking at all of these. Residential property, only 2 more here at 28 Sergeant Lane, increased 12.9. The property was sold for 25.8, so almost doubled in that sale. And then the largest reduction was a piece of property at 50 Valparaiso Avenue, owned by Menlo School. Last year it had a partial exemption. This year it was granted a full exemption, and the reduction was $6.7 million. So it's music from Menlo. And this, as a note, 39 of the 40 largest increases added more than $6.2 million. So that very lowest home that sold on that top 40 added 6.2 million. Everybody else added more than that to the bottom line in the roll. And it was more than the additive that we saw in 23 for last year. Now headed to 26.7, and I wish I could make this bigger. I can, but if I do, I don't know how to get back. I can use my fingers to do this, but then getting back, I don't. I'm going to try that. Yes. So just to show you that this report looks at the sales transactions in 2024. Again, those are what we're seeing in 25. And then 25, which is what we're going to see next year, 26.7. The first column are the number of sales, and you can compare January last year had 7 sales, this year had 3. And you can look at that across the board. I think it was only 1 month this year, and that was August, when you had 6 sales this year and 3 last year. So all the other months you've had fewer sales this year than you had last year. In some cases, you had a bigger differential, so the property that sold and the value on the roll at the time it sold was greater this year than it was last year. I would tell you that the one in February looks like it was a Prop 8 because it was valued at 267 and sold for $7.8 million. Your internet is unstable. Okay, total this year, is 36 sales year to date. Same point last year, you had 74 sales. So we're running a little behind right now. And, if I were to look at the sales you had September, October, November, December last year, 22, 37. If you added those 37, you would still be only 73. You would still be under the 111 that you had last year. So that's one of the reasons that I'm kind of couching what I'm talking about next year, because you need to have this kind of an attitude. You can't just rely on the CPI. You need to have this much again, or at least what you had in the 2% range a couple of years ago. You're not going to get 3.1, obviously. Well, maybe. But that $57 million home, just telling Elizabeth earlier, is a third of a percentage point bump. It's not like it's going to add a whole percentage point. You need $174 million, she said. So, yeah, we need 3 or 4 more of those. I've put 2 reports in. The first report is the sales that we've had this year to date. It is through the middle of August. I've highlighted the $14 million sale in yellow. You can see that the value on the roll before that sale was $14,409,540. Sold for $14 million, so it's sold for less. There have been 3 properties here with a $10 million price point and none higher. The lowest sale price was $3 million. A lot of homes here in the $300,000 and $400,000 range. Those are properties that have been held for a long time and are Prop 13 based.
There's fewer of those out there.
There's few, well, I've got to report to that. I've got a report, we'll do that. And so this is this year.
That's to be expected. I mean, we've been tearing down houses right and left for
Yeah.
over a decade, 2
Right.
decades.
So again, fortunately, the sales for this year, those 36 sales happen to fit on one page. Your current median price is $7,675,000. I'm going to show you last year, it's 3 pages. I'm not going to stop a lot other than to show you how many are double digit. Go down this far right column. How many are in the 20s, the 10s?
Is there any basis to the order of the
It's sale date.
sale date?
Yeah, the sale date's on the far right, far left, and so they're in sale date order. If you wanted to look at the properties that sold in August, for instance, there were like 3 of them, and they sold, one sold for $31,800, one sold for $23,000. So good months to sell, but you can look through those. And then when I get to the final here and look at the total median price, it's $8 million. The median of single family homes is a number just above that, $7,850,000, compared to this year, which is $7,675,000. So you're about $175,000 off, only 7.5-ish months into this year. We're not, I don't have the data for the full year of August, so more is to come on that. So again, a lot of 30,000, 20,000, and up to 10,000 that we saw sold last year that we're not seeing yet in as many numbers this year. What does this mean? So year to date, single family homes, the ones we just looked at, on the far right, I've got the numbers highlighted. The additive right now is 145,182,450. If you look below that, not the bold number, but the next number down, that was the additive for 25/6, 519.4 million. So we're a ways away. In order to get that 3.7, the year before that, it was 419. That would be nice. 428, 590. So you've had some really big years, and this year's not measuring up yet. I mentioned that it takes $174 million to move you up 1 percentage point. And that's because you've got $17.44 billion in value in the city. 1% of that is the 174.4. When I divide the 145 million that you've got year to date by what it takes to grow 1%, I'm at 0.83. And I'm willing to say, yeah, I think you're gonna double that. I don't know how much more than 1.66 I'm willing to go with yet, okay? If that house comes in this year, that's 0.3,
No.
right? That's 0.3, and I need a little bit more to get me where I need to go. So, what I've done is, after this report, I'll show you what I've done. These are your detached homes, just all your homes, yours all single family, everybody else, is detached and attached. So, other than maybe Hillsborough and Woodside, I think that the rest of them have got a mix of single family and single family detached and attached. But your current median price is down 2.54% through August. You're not the only one. Woodside's down. I consider Woodside, Portola Valley, they're also down. Hillsborough, cities that have got fairly unique properties in that you have some really, really, really high ones, and you still got some Prop 8s out there. We Prop 13s out there. So, and as they're selling, they're not all selling for 20 million. They're selling for 6. You know, they're selling for this mix out there. So it really depends on when it was built, how much it's been improved, and what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Colma is catching their work.
Mhm.
Colma.
Colma, yeah, but look how many they've sold. 3.
They work once.
Yeah, and you divide that, yeah, catch what a break. They had one really good home sell, and the rest of them didn't.
Paul?
Yeah.
Does the town get an update before us do the 26-27 budget?
You get an update from me, you get a budget
Yeah.
forecast, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tool that
Yes.
that you can use to develop. And since you asked, I'm gonna show you what it's gonna contain. Thanks for being in my room. The other thing that I can't guess at is new construction, and this is a 10-year history of the new construction that was added, and we can calculate it after the roll's been released by going and using an algorithm to pull these in. And so what we've done in this continuum is shown you the average of all years, and then the trimmed average, because I've got a programmer who just can't leave numbers alone, and he has to drop the high and low. Unfortunately, we didn't have a low to drop, only a high to drop. And I noted that the last 2 years, you were in that $200 million range, as you were in 2022. I think 2023 is an outlier, so we'll put that out. Back in 2020, you had close to 200 million. So I'm willing to put that out there until your building official tells you, no, we only completed 75% of what we completed in 24. So every year's different. I've already mentioned this a couple of times. A lot of different projects out there. There are a lot of different state of construction. But if we assume that you retain 1.85% of the CPI, put that down below in the summary. And the sales transactions will be between 1.5 and 2.0. I'm doubling your 8.3, coming up with 16.6. Is it going to be more than that? Probably. And new construction, I'm plugging in what last year's amount was at 0.25. And that's coming in at 4.76%. Okay, I'm going to know what is sold when I give you your final forecast tool in probably mid-March, because this county's behind the diamond doing that. And I'm going to know what the CPI is, and hopefully you're going to know what the new construction is, and we should be able to craft something that's going to get close. It might be closer to 5. It's not going to be 6, and it's certainly not going to be 6.48, unless a lot more sell in the next 3 months. So new construction and sales, those are always the wild cards out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not just telling you this is happening everywhere. I have not found this, and I mentioned Hillsborough a minute ago, they wanted to budget 6 and it's not showing. But again, it's their budget. You budget what you need and you figure it out,
They're
Okay,
all in council.
Prop 13. So this is a part of a report. We have this report that goes all the way back to 1978, but it gets a little flaky. I started what I do in 1990, and I started buying sales transactions, and I had a lot of prior sales. but I'm really comfortable with anything that's happened since 1990. And I will tell you that properties that sold in the early 1980s through the early 1990s are as low valued as those that sold in 1978. You know, they have not, they're 30, 40 years old now. And they're properties that have just got that 2% plugged in every year or less if it's not 2%. So this report goes back to 1995, gives you the total parcel count in the city. And you've got roughly 12 fewer parcels today than you had then. So you've combined some parcels along the way. The number of parcels that were in the Prop 13, pre-Prop 13 pool back then was 60.9, that's in the percent column. All the way down at the bottom today, they're at 14.6. On average, you've got about 25 homes that sell a year, 20 to 25, at least over the past 10 years. This year, year to date, there have been 8, and you can go back at that one report that I showed you, and you can almost pick them out by going down the list. And when they're selling now, they're selling for 1,811% higher. Somebody help me, is that? How many times? Is that 118 times?
Yes.
Yeah,
880 times.
yeah. It's,
Oh,
Wait.
yeah, that's percent, but times, you come back 2 decimal points?
Yeah.
Is that 11.8 times the value on the roll, I think? I'm not the math person, I hire people to do that.
11.8.
Yeah, and you can see the median value of those 8 homes that have sold today are a little more than almost $440,000, and the sale price is way up there. So they're just fine selling their pre-prop 13.
So you keep saying that 2022 is really an outlier, right? And at 2,652% increase is huge.
Right, well, 2022, not an outlier. The reason 2022 was an outlier is that low interest rates, pent up demand. People had been locked down for the full year of 2020. They came out in 2021, but they were still afraid to go into open houses until we started having them online. And so once that took hold, things took off. Mom and dad that wanted to sell their house but didn't want to go out to look for a new house in COVID stayed where they were until they felt safe.
Well, that's really almost 15% of the homes that happened them
Yes,
last sold in 1978.
yeah.
That's kind of insane.
And some of those are gonna be vacant lots that somebody invested in and never built on. And that family, I've got one in Taos, and my kids will end up with this $10,000 lot when I die, and they'll get to sell it to somebody. I'm sure it's worth more than that, but, you know,
Taos, New Mexico?
Taos, New Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah. My husband won it in a lottery, so, you know, it's not something that I have a lot of heart
I get
against.
it.
The final thing I want to show you, I believe, is the top owners in this city, town. Last year's on the right, this year is on the left. If there's no symbol in front of the owner on the right, they're in the same position this year. So people move up and down. Pacific Peninsula moved from 2 to 3. California Water moved from 3 to 2. They swapped. Tan Lip Blue. I have an Asian who's now editing Top Owners, and it is Lip Blue Tan. So it's not seeing that as a match, but it is a match.
Yeah.
And some of the others moved out of the list.
Anderson Cooper, is it Anderson?
I wouldn't know.
Who's Pink
And
Sunset?
finally,
I want to know who Pink Sunset LLC is.
huh?
Pink Sunset.
Yeah, they've
LLC.
been here a long time.
Are they Asian? you think?
I don't believe
think
they
it's
are, but they've been here since I started doing work.
Is it Charles? Is it? Oh, I don't know, but that sounds right. And then George Wallace, we know who he is, of course. Yeah.
The last report I want to show you, and it is something that the council may find of interest. One of the reasons why you might not be seeing the kind of, this looks at a 10-year history. It looks at the major reasons for the growth. The green block in each of these is the growth that's due to sales transactions. So this year better than last year. About equal to where we were in 23, less than 22, maybe a little less than 21, and some of those other years have outpaced you also. So it really does come down to that. New construction is in blue. That was similar to last year, a lot less than the year before, but it's something that is pretty constant going back over 10 years. The orange block is the 2% CPI, and it was 2% except for in 2021 and in 2016, when the little bars are less. And the little purple thing is the unsecured wrongful application to you last year and the takeaway this year. So it was larger last year and the last couple of years, and it's now lower. Are there any questions before I stop the share? You have the books that I generally, or when I'm meeting with clients, so I generally go through a little more detail, a little deeper dive, not as much dialogue. If there are any questions as you review that, either shoot me an email through Robert or shoot it to me yourself. I got your name. No, you're not exactly right, trying to do me a dirty. And more than happy to speak with you.
General question for you, it's kind of a beginner on this one. As I kind of figure you're moving through a lot of data, and you're moving from a point of certainty, and then as you get towards the tip, you're moving towards either uncertainty or unknown. At some point, is there a floor in there? And then maybe this is a question more for the budgeter. Does the budgeter budget to the floor, or is there just a real reliance on the excess above the fund?
No, I'm a conservative budgeter. Okay, I know what the CPI is, that's in the report. I know by the time I get to your forecast, I'm gonna know every property that's sold in calendar year 2025, that's plugged in. So
there's a point in time where you move away from some of the uncertainty that you're talking about now, you get into accuracy, and there's enough time in there for our budget to be able to be modified.
It depends on when it goes to council. I'm assuming you go to council late May, early June. You have what you need from me in March.
So it's the multi-year forecast, not
It is
the
a 5 year
current year
it's a 5 year forecast.
And so, and I'm sure there's some play in the budget between the 12th month and the 13th month too. But so it's the multi-year that we really kind of get.
I don't do it on a monthly basis because property tax.
No, I mean that if the overall budget's $14 million, that if something that happens in January versus December, things can be moved around a little bit. I don't know how tight that is. Is the purpose of yours to supply information for the the 5 year?
It's for 1 year and 5 year. We use.
So 1 year is almost.
1 year is almost certain. Year 2, we assume a 2% CPI because that is the maximum that can be granted. 11 years since Prop 13 was adopted, CPI wasn't 2%, it was less than 2%. That can happen again. If we go into a recession, the 2% would not be guaranteed.
But if we go into recession, then we've got a period in time where we can react to it. Because what you're giving us is a 1 year number where we've got vision.
Yes. Well, that's the thing about a 5 year forecast. A 5 year forecast has to be retooled every year because different assumptions come along as we're working our way through this.
No, I see so.
Right?
And I don't know to what guidance I've been in it.
And because we've been doing sales information for as long as we have, when we put together our 5 year forecast, years 2, 3, 4, and 5 are developed based on historical averages of the number of sales. So we can go back, we used to go back 20 years. But when we went back 20 years, we started hitting some of those post-recession years. And then last year, I believe we used 16, but they were 16 really good years. So we have to find a blend, and we're in discussion, my staff and I, what works for us this time? Do we need to use 18? Do we need to use 50? Do we need a lot?
What's your experience been in the past? I'm sure you're one, based on what I see, it's pretty amazing. What's been your experience in being able to forecast that? First year, you're 5th year. Do you look backwards on the reports that you give?
We do.
Go,
we are within.
Yeah. Why didn't I get that?
We're within 1% and 85% of our clients.
So that's the margin of error that we could use if we were thinking
You could,
that you're.
but usually it's something like this unsecured asset that went away. I won't know that's going to happen until I.
No, and who would ever put that on?
Right, you wouldn't know that, right?
The person who actually
So,
have transaction may not even.
No, but we budget unsecured flat. So
Yeah.
last year, we budgeted it flat, but we ended up losing 7 million on that.
Mhm.
I had no idea.
You have confidence that the numbers are being recorded correctly if they're giving an address from an unsecured, throwing it over here? Or is that just a black box that nobody looks in?
You know, the assessor's office, I believe confidently, knows what they're doing. They've got good assessors. They're doing the appraisal they're supposed to do.
Not
Whether
so
they're
much the
doing
appraisal values, but the reported values that are in there actually moving in to the rolls and getting the tax applied.
Oh,
Not seeing errors.
I think that their systems are tight, but that's concerned. I'm not worried about that.
Redundant.
We audit the assessor. We audit every parcel in your city every year to make sure that it stayed where it was.
Mhm.
What's that mean? You want?
I mean, we make sure that it's in the city, the town of Atherton, I've got more cities and towns. In the town of Atherton, with a tax rate area that returns revenue to your city and not to Menlo Park or whatever.
So part of this is a report that the town relies on
Yeah.
for you guys to do, to say that the information is being.
Yeah,
Correct.
we're auditing the county.
I thought this was forecasting tool. It's, what
No,
it is, it's
it's-
also.
I'm a data geek.
And we get an opportunity to elect our successor. We've got Sandy Arnett, right? And she's been in office how long now? 20 years, about 15 years?
See, and this is the thing, I worry about things like that because she's gonna retire
Yeah, well,
and she knows a lot. And I don't know if the person that's coming up behind her,
and hopefully her
those were all-
staff is well trained also, and we will elect her successor,
right,
okay? And that's a problem because we don't absolutely know. I mean, just like Larry, and
Stone.
Stone, right? Yeah, so they're having a runoff
yeah, I know.
for who's gonna take his job, and that's a big job in Santa Clara.
Well, and Larry came from city government, so he had a sense of
Mhm.
what cities needed. He
Oh.
really worked with cities to help them budget.
And I've had a lot of experience because of my commercial real estate company in Santa Clara. We've had a lot of
Yes.
talks with him.
What is the purpose of page 37? And how does Robert use that? Yeah, isn't this?
Oh, Prop 8, okay. So, that's a Prop 8 draft, and the purpose of that is that, not so much in Atherton, but let's say in San Mateo. In 2005, there were some homes that were built, and they were sold, and then there was a bank problem, and people went into foreclosure. So those homes were devalued. And because of the second Prop 8, this Prop 8 that was adopted right after Prop 13, to back up, Prop 13 is adopted, someone says 2% growth every year? Yes. My house burns down, 2% growth? Absolutely. No provision that's gonna protect you from an earthquake, a fire, a flood, anything, 2%. That can't be right. So the next tax measure, Prop 8, fire, flood, earthquake, economic condition that impacts the market value of your home. So all these homes that sold, let's say that 40% of them went into foreclosure and the other 40%, people bought them at those high prices, still own them. The assessor goes through and reduces those values temporarily until the market value catches back up with them. So that graph shows if I paid $500,000 for my home in year one, and the next year it goes to 550,000, I'm paid on the blue line. Prop 13 says I can only be paid 2% a year. So that's where my tax bill is. But in year three, it plummets and my home is now worth $450,000. It's no longer worth the 500,000. The assessor puts it at that low point for taxation. So cities, counties, special districts are losing money. Still paying his mortgage on the $500,000 home. And they lose money until the market catches up and passes that trended blue Prop 13 line. And now they get put back on that line for taxation. The importance of that is when people were reduced in 2008 and then restored in 2013, they were calling cities crying, my taxes went up more than 2%, completely forgot that they had a 12% reduction, okay? And so they're going
Prior to
crazy.
that time.
And that's, I will put that in there so you can Xerox it and show them, this is how it works. I understand that it went up a lot, but you're not paying any more than you would have paid had you stayed on this line for the last 6 years.
So the red line is what it went down
The
to.
red line is the loss in taxes, and the blue line is what they would have paid had they not gone down in value.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next time, bring your laptop so we can have you do more on the spot.
Yeah.
No,
That's nice to hear.
Paul is great. They do get the information from the assessor's office. They make sure they audit, verify for us, and then on the other side, they give us opportunities to forecast.
Yeah, it's very reassuring. The experience is really
I will
fast.
tell you that your assessor has a tracker that he uses. And the cities that I talked with Burlingame, I talked with Belmont, the cities that I've been delivering that have been using the tracker have been budgeting too high. So I'm not sure how up to date the information is that he has, but I caution them, don't just take his view, take somebody else and argue with. That's what I'm here for. I'll be done with this kind of stuff by the end of December, and our forecasts go out February, March. And that's what I'm meeting with clients again, saying, you want to argue with me, you want to budget 6% and I'm only showing 4.5%, let's talk.
Seems to me you're recommending 4.6 somehow for us.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, will it stay 4.6?
Yeah.
Because from a practical perspective,
Right.
we get the estimates from Paula, we bring them as part of the budget process. Robert puts a number in there and says, this is what we're estimating and here's why.
3.2.
And we also include in there the foreshadow warnings of VLF and ERAF, and that can always be taken away or reduced. But from the council members and sometimes through the finance committee, we get, well, there's lots of construction going on in town.
Yeah, they see it, they say, why isn't it on the road?
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
when is it
exactly.
done?
And so they're looking at what's happening now and we're looking at what happened a couple years ago. And so they increase the projection.
Yeah.
Or they say, leave ERAF a little higher.
Yeah.
Or, VLF, we're gonna get it. How sure are we gonna get it? So the number ends up ticking up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you go in a
staff gets
little
worried.
lower, right, that you come up, that
It's
like,
good, but they get the same report, so they know what the
Yeah.
numbers are.
Well, council likes to rely upon its finance committee for good judgment.
But
So council goes high and then you guys go low.
We go,
Somewhere in the middle,
we go,
right?
yeah.
But reverse for me.
But we get-
It should be the reverse.
Should be the first. In the monthly council packets, as the mayor points out each month, is departmental monthly reports. In that report is the building and planning department's report.
oh,
And it includes number of single family residences that have been finalized, which are the ones that are gonna be
right,
assessed each fiscal year.
Mm.
So it goes back in this chart anyway that I'm looking at, 2022, there were 17 single family homes that were coming online. 29 in 2022-23.
Yeah.
11 in 23-24, and only 14 in 24-25. And then so far this year,
Don't know.
we're
Yeah.
a little less.
What's the pressure it costs the year at 4.5%, you go to 6? What happens?
Budget wise,
Yes,
well,
it sounds like it repeats itself every year.
it does. It's a whole process that.
So no matter who's there, it's another 1.5% or whatever.
It's added, right?
Isn't it the opposite in our case?
Yes.
We
It is.
go under whatever the number they're recommending it.
We do. But when it comes out at the end of the budget year, it tends to be a little higher.
One council member.
Yeah, and depending on how vocal that individual is, where the rest of the council falls
Council
in
members are
line.
pretty vocal.
Got
Yeah, we.
How weak the rest of us are to
Hello.
succumb.
starting to get a little better.
But we've never run out. I mean,
No, and overall, we got a $22 million
That's not the
annual
point,
budget.
right?
We do get excess ERAF, we bank that, we don't count it as operational revenue.
Yeah.
So we're
always have
very
those
judicious
needs.
about those sorts of revenues and
Don't
put them in the
get it.
CIP. So operationally, we can probably weather that up and down percent, 0.5%. But CIP wise, that's where it's gonna be strong.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's always a pleasure.
All
Will
right,
we see you next
Thank
year,
you.
Paula?
next year?
I'm gonna be 80 in August.
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I can't do this forever.
Well, August is so far from
Still
now.
have that.
It's not, I mean, it's like a whole year from now.
Almost.
That's like 10 months from now.
So, we'll see. I'm not making any promises. I would like to slow down.
Yeah. Your mind will not slow down.
And
Yeah.
I have a grandson who
Oh.
lives in, Brooklyn.
Oh,
And he's applying at Cal State Loans. My husband passed away in 2011, so I've been a widow for 15 years, all by myself. And so he calls and he says, I got a question. You think I could come and live with you if I get accepted to Cal State Long Beach? And I go, sure. And then I step away and I go, wait.
Oh,
What did you do?
wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, because I told my sister, I said, listen, there's gonna be rules.
Yeah.
He's gonna have, I'm not cooking all of his meals and I'm not doing all
He
of his
can probably
laundry.
teach you a few things. Some of these kids really know how to cook.
His dad is a.
Yeah.
His dad is a-
And if
Yeah.
they get hungry enough, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, safe travels home. Bye.
Who's ready? Thank you so much, Paula. Give us a-
He's gonna come right back. Well, there's no business, huh? Who do?
So Robert's got the next item, so.
Oh, okay.
Robert noted it in front of the restaurant.
Calvers, right?
Yeah, no, So usually that, we can weather it because we keep URAF out of our operational budget.
Uh-huh.
It's below the line.
It can't be an operational, it's got.
Yeah, it's got a risk to it, so we only count operations money coming in that's not risky. And so we're able to weather some of those ups and downs in the property tax percentage if we needed to.
So you're in the 4.5 without it, and if it happens, then you.
You got more.
But it sounds like, going ahead 5 years, that it would be, that the 6.5% a year increase isn't gonna be
Yeah,
happening.
gonna happen.
Never, I don't think I'll ever.
Yeah, I think a safe bet's between 4 and 5, as terms of what we kind of project. And we used to have a graph in the budget every year that showed, revenues and expenditures and projecting that out and watch those lines just kind of come closer together as a way to manage expectations for projects and other things. But that's a reality now.
So we have a supply that's a diminishing return in our early single-family homes that haven't been remodeled or turned over. And I don't know if we've ever done a survey and a calculation of how many there are left. I mean, how hard would it be? Because there's like 2,500 plus or minus parcels in town, right? How many have been torn down, built, but how many are left? You could almost do a little survey by yourself, going down the roads and.
Ask them how healthy they are.
It seems like- seems like the county-
Hello, what are you
How
guys
you feeling
doing?
today?
They're saying probably better than you. Get out of here. No, but, so, yeah, so those, that big hit kind of stuff is probably sometime. Anyway,
Okay, item 3, is a review of what CalPERS is doing right now in their asset liability management. And now I'll turn over to Robert, and he's included a slide deck that is from today, is that right?
Correct.
Presentation that has been.
It's happening today, and there's one tomorrow. Correct. What's in item number 3, thank you, Chair. But just a brief review of the update of the CalPERS asset liability management review. And any substantive changes and continued discussion of our actual reports as of June 30th, 2024. Correct, as in 2024, this year, CalPERS is doing their asset liability management update review. And it's done again every 20 years. And It's a review of various assumptions, for the cost of future, the pension payments, liabilities, future investment returns, and any demographic changes. The ultimate outcome, though, of the ALM is the discount. It's the most important number for the pension system, because it ties to what the pension can earn long term. In 2021, the ALM was last, took place. At that time, that's when we had a 21.3% rate of return. And at that time, since it was the review of the ALM, that's when the discussion was of reducing, because of the funding risk mitigation policy calls for a reduction in discount rate. So they reduced it to 6.8%. And because the ALM was happening, they decided, let's review of keeping the discount rate at 6.8%. It was just supposed to be for a year. The funding risk mitigation policy allows for that. But they decided, since we're reviewing this, let's make it 6.8% for the next 4 years. So that was in November 21. The rates became effective July 22. And we've had 6.8% for the discount rate going forward. So as they're preparing to review the board with the board today, there's some current processes in place. The ALM this year, there's a different approach in there as far as one, they are going from a portfolio approach to a total portfolio approach. And I can see if I can pull up the
Total portfolio management. TPM.
yes, PPM. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
We're gonna follow your,
Yeah, so on my staff report, on the second page of the staff report, there's 3 keys to the CalPERS. It's the investment risk, employer affordability, and employment climate risk. So again, we began in 2025 of this year, March, for the ALM process. Some key decisions is they're gonna discuss a new portfolio approach, which is now this, they call the total portfolio approach. There's discussions of a discount rate proposal. They're going to review the draft experience study for the pension plans and the results, and that's taking place right now. In one of the discussions, so this comprehensive this ALM, I'm showing the presentation. So what they decided to do is a recommendation from the Finance and Audit Committee of CalPERS is adopt a total portfolio approach. And this is a comprehensive strategic, part of the ALM is a comprehensive strategic review of the asset allocation by the investment office, and then also the experience study and the assumptions by the actuarial office. So this 2025 ALM review brought a new approach to the portfolio. So it's called a total portfolio approach. So this kind of brings in ushers in a new investment framework on strategic allocation within an increased focus on risk. So the strategic allocation was currently right now, these are the allocations that we can allocate based off of the asset classes. This capital total portfolio approach that they're recommending, it's taking the capital market assumptions currently, but it's creating a formal total risk policy. So they're saying 75-25 equity bonds reference portfolio. So what they're going to do is create this exposure mix within the 75-25 approach, equity bond mix. And it also sets an active risk limit of 400 basis points. This total portfolio approach leads to no change in the current discount rate. There was discussions that, oh gosh, they're going to change the discount rate again. So they're going to keep it at 6.8%, the discount rate, but they're changing the way they're going to do the allocation of the portfolio. So Again, it's just adopting a new investment governance model called the total portfolio approach. And it's funding risk is consistent with the reference portfolio of the 75-25. And there's that active risk limit that they're willing. It's 400 basis points. For the management of the fund, they can move within the portfolio rather than currently, it's just these are the classes that you can invest in, these are the percentages that you can do.
As I interpret it, they are asking for more latitude
Correct.
to make sort of active decisions, tactical asset allocation, up to a level that would give them plus or minus 4%, different from the benchmark, the weighted average benchmark returns of the
Of that portfolio.
the portfolio.
Is that asking
Are
or
you
telling?
Are you familiar with this thing called total portfolio
No, but-
approach? It's, I don't really understand it, but the new chief investment officer, Stephen Gilmore, I think he came from New Zealand's
Yeah, correct.
old pension fund. And he and some others worldwide have like coined this term and this approach, which is a little vague to me, but so when he came on board, this is the end of kind of a long process of him trying to get everyone on the investment, on the CalPERS board up to speed with accepting this. And part of it is that the managers will have more latitude than
Correct.
What say is there? You say ask and accepting, who, we're not asking or accepting. Isn't this a black box that we tied ourselves into in essence because
yes.
we can't move, so there's a structure in there and they approve things and we say thanks. And one of the larger purposes of getting this information is to understand where they're headed, so we can either trust their discount rate or distrust their rate, so we know what goes into the budget. Is that kind of what this all comes down to? It's like, well, do we owe more money or not? Is that where this all heads?
But it's
Correct.
it's at least, yeah, we don't have any influence.
So a bunch of
over it.
noise, it might be correct noise, but the result is we were right or we were wrong.
But it's good news though, that
Yes.
they're not gonna change this 6.1.
So, yeah,
Because
because,
the way, the
well,
only
I
way.
mean, that news is news, right? But if they should change it, they should change it. But if they're not changing it, it affects us because it keeps our liability.
Yeah,
It should be accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
and particularly, everyone knows that last year was a huge, good year too, 11.3.
Yeah.
And for a while, they had this rule that was just a one-way ratchet. When things like that happened, they were gonna lower the discount.
No, you want some
Correct.
smoothing.
Right.
And it would never get raised. It would only go one way.
Yeah.
Just down.
It only would get
And
reduced.
they've done away with that. And in fact, are recommending no change, which is
Right.
good.
Right, so recommended no change. On the funding risk mitigation policy, it used to be an automatic reduction on the discount rate. When it had over
Based on
2.5.
performance.
Correct.
Yeah. So that changed recently.
So yeah, in
About a
24, it changed to
Oh,
where it's not an automatic, it's when this event occurs, then they present
They'll
it
look
to
at
the
it.
board
Got
and recommend to the board, yes or no. Because we've had the double digit positive return, they recommending don't decrease the discount rate because of for the funding risk mitigation policy. And also on the ALM review, this year's review, they're recommending keep it at 6.8%, but they're creating this asset allocation total portfolio approach to help them be able to kind of active manage it. And give them a leeway on active risk.
There's a predictor in our reports that we get.
Correct. The sensitivity.
The sensitivity analysis that shows us anyway, if they did reduce it by X%, what would that, how would
So
that?
it gives you a range for your multi-year.
Correct.
That's
It gives
nice.
if it
Is
goes
a big number?
so if it goes up 1% or down 1%, how our liabilities will change. Yeah, there's what's it called?
Are we ever in a spot where we've done the budget, it's fixed, and then there's a change where that cash flow actually affects it?
the existing budget that we're in, or is it always delayed?
It's always,
So-
yeah, forward.
Even when
Because
this,
she gives us the property tax number, then when we do the budget, we get to plug in the real number based on 6.8 or whatever it is to make a change from the budget. So it takes money from somewhere else.
yeah, so let's say that they lowered it and that increased our unfunded liability
You're right.
by
Right.
$1 million.
That's
Well,
cool.
which means that's a new layer, we have to start
Paying.
amortizing that, but we don't even have any payments for the first two years.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of time to
There's a lag.
budget for what's gonna happen.
Yeah, there's a lag, so,
We know that.
yeah, within the actuarial reports. So the 24 actuarial reports that we received shows what our rate will be for next year in 26, 27.
Yeah.
And then it shows a projected for 27, 28.
Yeah.
So we know what our next years are gonna be, those are locked in. Next year, the rate will change, based off of how they do, on the next actuarial reports.
Well, but there's like with each new layer, there's a 2-year lag before.
Correct.
you actually
There's a
have to
2-year
start,
lag, yes.
Paying it off or get credits for
But there's breathing room in this thing.
Yes,
it. Yeah.
In other words, you're not reacting to say, oh no, that's not gonna work right for us, we really gotta make some changes.
correct. And I think the biggest approach on this was, I think our biggest concern was, they're gonna change the discount rate from 6.8 down. And then that's gonna obviously, in the long term, it'll increase our costs. But they're keeping it the same, but they're anticipating on this new investment approach that they'll have an opportunity to do better on the investment rate of return. And it's kind of recommended on this 75-25, the total return is about 6.9%. And so the range is between 5 and 8.3% on this TPA. So at keeping it at the 6.8%.
Mhm.
So this report was just to give the committee an update of where we're at. And so this is where they're saying on the reference portfolio recommendation, it sets the market risk for to earn the passive returns. And then it becomes the total portfolio benchmark to measure against. So it's just expressing that the tolerance risk that they're willing to do, there's not gonna be, it's still gonna minimize employer cost volatility, maximize the likelihood of better rate of returns. That's what they're hoping and what they're recommending. Other than that, there's no other major changes, and this processes will stay the same. With meeting with the board, they review the experience study, they look at the assumptions every year. This will going through a recommendation this month, and then there's there's a timeline. So right now they're in the November 2025 timeline. That's the PERP recommended reference portfolio, active risk limits, expected rate of return. We know it's gonna be 6.8. They're gonna do the 75-25 total portfolio report approach that they're recommending. Then they'll have the board will say, okay, we'll do this, and then March of 26, they'll show the policy updates to the pension plan, and then they'll review the strategies, allocation strategies, implementation strategies, and then it takes place. This PERF ALM will become effective July of 26, which won't affect our rates until 27, 28.
And if you're interested, like this presentation today will be, there'll be a video on
Yes,
YouTube or CalPERS. You can
yeah, they'll have it
watch
today and tomorrow.
And I think Robert probably will stay abreast of what's going on.
Yeah, I've attended some of these stakeholder meetings, and then we review what's gonna go before the board. And again, they're gonna change, they did the actuarial experience study. So with that, also, they're gonna update the assumptions within the actuarial reports to be effective for the next actuarial report, which is June 30th, 2025. when we get next year. So, they're updating those. There's some,
Do you get out of their meetings feeling more confused or more comfortable?
well,
No.
both. Comfortable in the sense that, they realize the cost that these big changes are to the normal costs and to the employer costs of the plan. But they understand that, one, we've changed in my staff report, I showed how we changed from 7.5 to 7% over time.
Mhm.
And then in 21, 22, when they did this ALM, we went to 6.8. So we went from 7.5 to 6.8
Mhm.
in the span of four years. And that brought up our cost, right? We did that. That was a big change. So they understand that making more adjustments to the discount rate is gonna affect us. And I think the 6.8 is not where we're gonna stay, but I think for now, I think eventually, probably by the next ALM in 4 years, it might be to 6.6.
Yeah, they can't appease us, because then that would create a bigger problem.
Correct. And but the hope is with changing this investment approach, that they're gonna continue to beat that discount rate.
Yeah, I think this new investment manager thinks that he can do that.
Correct.
And yeah, I think he has a track record of doing better in New Zealand and wherever.
Mhm.
Does he
And
just invest in
if they
passive
can, there's no reason to lower the rate, because the rate is what you expect to,
Expect to.
is your expected return, so.
Yeah, I think that the 6.8, 6.5, I think that's like the normal, that's probably the, I think that's like the benchmark rate that these portfolios should be at.
The other pension funds.
Yeah, the pension fund should be at, I mean, our OPEB is at, in our actuarial, we have it at 6%. We, from the beginning, we had it 6%. And CalPERS at that time had it at 8.25, I think in 2002 was the discount rate. But our OPEB and stuff has been at 6%, and we've always maintained that. We've met that.
We're smarter.
5.9, 5.8, or 6, over time. But I think for the pension, the hardest part is reducing it. There were some challenges. There's some increases in normal costs, the AUL, and funding liabilities that we paid, and plus the cost on the employer side have gone up. Being that it's going to stay at 6.8%, and then these changes here, investments, and then there's some assumption changes here, that will bring up some costs, but it's going to be mitigated. It's going to probably be about 1% or 0.1%. It's in the staff and the handouts that I provided on the assumption changes that it'll probably increase the plan by like 0.3%, 0.2%, on some of these assumption changes that they're looking at from the experience study. That was the attachment 4. What's that report that I listed? So, yeah, I think that's attachment 4 is showing that what the changes will be. So the changes on the actuarial assumptions, that'll probably be between, on the miscellaneous side, 0 to 0.9% increase. And on the safety side, it's going to be negative 1.1 to 1.2% on the normal cost. So there's some changes on the assumptions, but overall, with the way the perp is at staying at 6.8 and the allocations, I think on this strategy, I think that that gives us opportunity to continue to beat the rate, right, every year. But that's what I wanted to kind of go over. We're staying afloat on this, staying up to speed on what CalPERS is doing. And then I included the attachment, the second attachment to the actuarial reports. You received the actuarial reports in September. These section 2s are the second attachment to those reports. They hadn't been out yet. They just came out in September, the end of September, these reports. So just including this in your packet. These are the second sections that go with the actuarial reports of June 30th, 2024. So And again, we're gonna have a review, we'll get the actuary here in the new year, hopefully, to kind of discuss the changes that are happening right now with the CalPERS board on the ALM. review. And
So
then
one way is
review
we
it.
take heat off of the liability numbers by feeding $5 million, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that reduced.
yeah, reviews, well, we did 5 million in 2021, and then we did 3 million this year.
Oh,
It reduced, yeah, so we reduced, yeah, 5 million was in 21, 3 million was just this June. So it,
25.
yes.
It's almost like you're amortizing it, where you're bringing it down, that gives a
Yeah.
level of comfort, doesn't stop our.
It doesn't stop
It
our,
doesn't decrease our liabilities, doesn't stop our expense.
correct,
Well,
Well, it does affect expense,
yeah,
because
You gotta work on that.
yeah.
They're putting some signs out, something.
It reduces,
Steve, the 3 million, this latest one. Wipes out one of these layers
Yeah,
that we are paying to amortize.
right,
So it is reducing our expense.
Right, right.
Forward.
And it's as if you got a $15 million liability, then you have an 18, and you have 20, you're looking at it, and even if things are gonna stay relatively the same, you get worried because the number's so big.
yeah,
So what you're saying is we're just bringing that down, so if you're gonna add some on, yeah, we're bringing it down anyway.
so,
Interest only loan.
yeah, on the 3 million, it's anticipated to produce a 5-year savings of 1.27 million. And then over the amortization, about 5.3 million. Over the loan, over the lifetime, paying off.
Is that in our budget as a one-time item?
Well, no, it reduces our UAL over time,
Ah.
our expense.
So you, over periods.
But then again, it's layers,
yeah.
right? It's layers, every year's layers, so
Sure.
the better the plan beats the investment return every year, it just has to be 6.8%. The better
Tell 'em
our over time, yeah, all it has to be is 6.8%. Which is good, I mean, I think, I think eventually it could go down to 6.6, but I think it's just, they have to do it with time, right? It's just too much, too fast, is what they're looking at.
Through the chair.
So, I don't know if you were planning to do,
I just wanted to ask real quickly before we read this, what is our current liability? You know, is it like 14, 16 million?
Our total liability is report,
Just help.
16 million
Mm,
is the miscellaneous,
mm.
7.2 million, miscellaneous, and public safety's 13 million
So that's
20.
20 combined,
combined.
okay.
I think that was before.
But that was at the,
Is that before
correct,
the
the 3
three?
million,
Correct.
you're right.
Correct.
So about 16, 17.
16, 17 million, yeah.
How do you put that in perspective? Maybe if it was 50 million or 10 million or
Oh, we would.
20, how do you, where's that?
Let's
fit in?
compare us to other cities, right?
Oh, I
I
mean,
mean, not the worst cities, but I mean,
We're
they're
not.
not healthy. What do you
There
compare?
is percentage funded. You know,
we're
like 75 or
75,
77%
yeah,
funded.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Got it.
good, and I think a couple years ago, we were 69% funded.
So you look at the investment pool, big bucket,
Mm.
and then there's space missing. We need to keep filling in, and we just keep trying to fill that in.
Correct,
Yeah.
with the paying down the UAL, which what we did. So over time, we're saving, we have an expense saving.
Yeah, because you gave.
That we're gonna realize, right? But then over time, it could get better because of the,
Right.
The UAL.
yeah.
So, say again what the
Interest rates.
UAL means.
Unfunded actuarial liability.
Unfunded actuarial
It's,
liability.
it's the difference between, okay.
The
you
market
have-
value of assets.
You have, the accrued liability, which is all the future pension liabilities discounted back to now.
Okay.
And then you have the value of your investments currently. And the difference between those two is the unfunded liability. If you're 100% funded, your market value of your investment should be equal to this discounted value of future liabilities. And the 6.8% is saying they've discounted it at 6.8%. And if we keep returning 6.8% on the investments, the investments will grow at the same rate that the liability does.
But we never catch
And
it.
then,
So that person can't reasonably retire. They
No.
only have 75% of stuff. They're gonna run out of money. So they gotta
Yeah.
keep working. So we gotta keep working.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
but they force everyone now to amortize off over 20 years.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The current unfunded liability, and then every year there's a new layer added on it, because we plus or minus.
Sounds like-
In this, section 2 that is handed out, I don't know if you were planning to do it, but I asked Robert to give everyone this.
Yeah.
If I could recommend one page that you look at to try to understand how this works, it's page 12. And it basically shows how they got down to the investment gain and loss that gets allocated and the non-investment gain and loss.
Tom, is this it?
No,
No,
it's,
page 12,
it's page 12 of the statute.
The valuation report.
No?
It's after the
It's
presentation.
like the.
Yes, yes,
Is it this one?
yeah, page 12.
It's pretty thick. This point. You have the whole section too?
Yeah.
I'm
I have it.
asking what's.
Oh,
It's this one, right?
Mhm. Is it page 12?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, page 12. So it is showing, understanding this will give you appreciation of some facts. They can calculate the unfunded accrued liability at the pool level. That's what they start with, but it's just the accrued liabilities of all the future pension payments minus the current market value. And they say that's 8,256,000,000. And then they basically add on they take away the expected payments. That amortize it, and then they add on 6.8% because that's basically what's gonna happen to the unfunded liability is it's built in that it increases 6.8%. So then they get to an expected UAL and then, which is on 1M, then they know what the actual UAL is. They show that as 1N, so they can figure the difference, $252 million. That has got gets divided up between what the investment gain or loss was, and then a plug number. The plug number is non-investment gain or loss. So then the section 2 here shows how they get to what the investment gain and loss is. And the key thing to look at there is 2J shows an expected return of 6.8%. They add that on to get to expected assets, and then they look at the actual assets, and the difference is expected gain or loss. So when it's a negative number, that's a gain. So what they call investment gain or loss is really the difference between 6.8% and whatever it actually was. So you could actually have a gain of 5%, but that's like a minus 1.8% because it didn't grow as much as it was expected. This year was a good year.
Yeah.
It was
11.6.
they have 601 million. So then they say, okay, of all this total gain or loss of 252 million that has to get divided up, well, over 600 million of gain. And so that means we had a non-investment loss of 349 million. They don't attempt to break that down, but it's basically changes in assumptions that not changes in assumption, but changes in reality versus the assumptions in terms of inflation,
Yeah.
pay
the
increases
data.
to staff, that sort of thing at the pool level. They don't look at what's happening in the Stafford. We're on the hook for what happens pool wide. And so recently, that's always been a loss that we have to pay our share of. It was a gain the year in 2020 or 2021. I haven't read this, but it must have been because of excess mortality of COVID.
Mhm.
Oh, my God.
Because that's been the only gain in recent years.
Nominally.
And then, yeah, speaking of that, so
Because
the,
usually, basically, reality is worse than our assumption.
right. So in that, the assumption changes that were also part of that staff report, so that attachment 4, so that tells you what what they're looking at based on the experience study, what the assumption changes will be, going forward. It has a summary of that, so it tells the discount rate assumption 6.8%. They have an inflation assumption of 2.3%. It's gonna be between 2.3 and 2.5%. They have a wage inflation assumption, which is at 3%. Then they have a payroll growth assumption. This is the assumption they use as far as the aggregated payroll of plans. And it's gonna be 2.8%. And then they review again like the demographic assumptions, which is the mortality, retirement probabilities, the salary scale, if you do effects of COVID, then look at disability retirement, and then other assumptions of that go into for the next actuarial evaluations.
But we already know, based on last year's actual investment return of 11.3
6, yeah.
that next year, we're gonna get a very large gain out given to us. So, meaning our unfunded liability will go down because of it. So that's good.
Yeah, the total funded status of the whole PERF is 79%. The whole plan.
So do we turn that into, we gave you 5 million, we give you 3 million. If this result happens, we're not gonna give you anything. Is that the effect of good news? We're not gonna try to more quickly reduce the UAL.
I would imagine it would affect.
Right.
That's what
We don't want to do
practical
that.
side.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's the good.
Yeah.
because we don't want to throw good money after bad.
No, we can use it.
Exactly.
Silly. It needs to be liability of the future.
No, but it means we have less of a problem.
Problem going
Less of a
forward.
problem.
Because it
Yeah.
reduces our normal cost, which is the UAL and the employer cost.
Projects.
Go the next.
It depends on who's.
Sorry, I'm a
You worked on 13 months.
It's-
That's our thinking.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
so do you need an
uh,
action?
I guess the last item is, does anyone have any ideas about agenda items going forward? Or were you gonna talk about?
yeah, I have one for next year, would be for the, review of AI, within the software, we're considering use of AI software, whether there's existing software we have or a new vendor to help develop financial metrics dashboard. Our current, financial software doesn't have, an AI component, but we do have what is it, reporting tool, transparency portal that has an AI. We currently don't use any of that, but I will put that as a next discussion for a future agenda item of AI use.
You're going to do some investigation. on
Correct.
what's available.
Investigating what's available, what we currently have.
Yeah, it'd be great, because a lot of the vendors are just not quite up to date. But you wanna make a complete system change where you find out they're actually integrating AI into it, you could have just.
Right.
You hadn't added on.
Yeah,
It just depends how much certainty they can give you what they're gonna be doing.
yeah. And I think for dashboard metrics, correct. Yeah, so we'll research it. As far as I know, currently, our current financial software doesn't have it, but we have another
That's unusual.
tool that has that integrated. We just don't, like research on what
We don't want to replace you.
you want to.
We do not.
Robert, do you ever review who the software vendors are that you use overall?
No, the committee does not review.
One thing
It's
though,
a-
I do want the committee to take a look at is something we talked about at the staff meeting this morning, There
Oh,
was,
yes.
there was a recent article in the
Yes.
newspaper about, the county's audit report on Las Lomitas School District and their credit card usage. And how that processes and programs work. This committee years ago, back when Jim Massey and Bob Guido and all those folks were still on the committee, Robert and I were new to the town. We went through that whole process of the purchasing ordinance revisions, credit card policy revisions. We adopted a very stringent and restrictive policy on how we do that. We have limits on the cards. We manage that. We have $1,000 cap on any purchases. It's got to be signed off by one of us. If there's got to be something like that on the credit card, we got to get and follow our purchasing policy, even though it's a credit card purchase. So we don't have the same problems that Las Lomitas had. And the auditors come in and they review it and they do random checks and that sort of thing. But we could always do better. And so we want to take a look at our credit card policies, bring that back before this committee, have you guys take a look at it, make some recommendations in conjunction with anything that the auditors recommended, and then make those changes to those policies.
Yeah, I think it was two-part. One, and it was the actual spending, but then second, the lack of controls is like the other piece of it, right? So just we don't have to allow zero spending, but like, how are we auditing what's spent and what are the controls?
And it's getting harder and harder. I mentioned this to some members of the council. It's getting harder and harder to find a vendor that just doesn't want to be paid now. And a credit card is the way to do that. Otherwise, it's a check we issue later and a PO and all that sort of process. And for catered food or for Amazon purchases for office supplies or staples or something like that, credit card is just the fastest and easiest way to accomplish that.
And sell it, you can sell it.
You can sell it.
Yeah.
So it's getting harder and harder to find vendors that rely on the PO policy practice and the cost of some of our materials. I mean, this was 2014. When we made that $1,000 cap. It's getting more challenging to stay within that.
So we have to figure out how to go with the times.
And we reduced the amount of credit card holders as well. So, you know, it's just reviewing and verifying.
Yeah, just back on my software question is really more about the independence of the software providers. So this committee does not need to be one that reviews that, but I would just ask that if that does come up. And the reason being, like, going back to bringing the news, there's certain software vendors that are getting much larger by acquiring other softwares. And then they're forced, those that have those softwares embedded in their systems are being forced to purchase bundles. So there's one currently about Fidelity. One of the arms of Fidelity is used only one software that was then purchased by a very large software vendor who was trying to force them. And the cost of them removing that software, it's so embedded in who they are and what they do that it's like, they don't want to pay for the bundle, but they can't remove the one piece that they have. Yeah, so they're suing them. So I'm just saying, like, just the independence of those, and if they are or not, just from a risk assessment standpoint, to understand.
Our software vendor for our financial software, Robert, is
Springbrook, and it's Excella, which owns Springbrook. We've been with them.
So yeah, just if they were ever purchased or whatever.
And the competitors will know how embedded the existing software is and how much it costs and whether it can be pulled out because they're interested. So they're gonna have an axe to grind to talk to you about how you can move and how to control that.
Yes. Easy transition. Sure. Okay.
That is not an easy shift, financial accounting software.
No, it isn't.
That's
And
nice.
I've been through two and I still have nightmares. Because it's the transition and they make it seem seamless and it isn't.
Is it a license fee that you pay?
Correct.
Okay.
License fee with them and
We just have an increase.
yeah, it's a license fee and it's a maintenance fee basically. For the license plus any maintenance or like troubleshooting support
Yeah.
calls. So it's just like a yearly maintenance fee that we.
But there's also, I mean, these software companies have been around for a while, and some of them, you have to transition now to our next version.
Yeah,
It's
or
version
cloud-based,
updates that just
yeah,
keep
yeah.
coming out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You just
You
can't
you
keep
go to
track.
industry, group meetings and see your peers and they're using something fun and interesting and they've had a good transition
I wonder,
experience.
yeah, what other
I
cities are
forget,
using.
was it, I think back in February, I had a meeting with Menlo Park with my other counterparts, and we were meeting with the assessors.
I mean, I just wonder, United States wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've gone, there's one, I think it was Belmont or San Carlos was going through a financial software transition, and they were having nightmare payroll, everything, it was, I forget what they were going to. It wasn't Tyler, it was a different software.
It's too hard to run redundant or when they switch to.
When they switched,
Move on
it
anyway.
was just hard to switch, and then when they switched the processes, so
And
yeah.
the worst thing you can screw up is payroll.
Payroll, yeah.
You run
That's the
seven
thing,
people,
yeah.
it's already hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then customization, like we have, our software is customized, for, pension reporting for CalPERS.
Yeah.
We create, it runs a report that we download into CalPERS every 2 weeks. And so it's customized for that.
And if it ain't.
And
broken, don't
when you go to a
fix it.
different software company, they don't have that, you have to pay them to create that customization, or they're not familiar with it. So we try
I'm
to
sure
stick with.
moving to AI is really the answer if it's just. Yes, right?
I don't
I
know if
don't know.
that's as simple as you think.
Yeah,
compared
yeah.
to AI.
Yeah,
So you're right.
yeah. I think, and then,
I'm just, I mean, this is for the next meeting. I'm just thinking that if there could be an if the existing software works, then can there be an overlay that goes into that, feeds the information, gives you a dashboard?
Yeah.
That you can look at and where you ask these questions that you don't have answers to now, or you're wondering about that don't take 3 days to form, it can produce it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm thinking about, not get rid of software or put in new software.
to have the AI component.
Yeah, so that would be helpful to know is like, what do our vendors have?
Mhm.
What would be helpful to you? This is,
Or what's
just a
in their
point of
future.
view, on the future, yeah,
Mhm.
from your perspective.
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay.
We need a motion for this,
We need a motion to adjourn.
for the property tax.
Oh, no, it was just a review, property taxes, but yeah. We want a motion to adjourn,
If it's necessary, I move the adjourn.
okay, and then that's.
All in favor?
Oh, no, I think everybody's motion to adjourn. What about you, Suzanne, you a motion to adjourn? You have to unmute. Motion to adjourn?
Do you need a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for attending. We'll see you soon.